its policies such as removal of subsidies on petrol with inflation at 30%. Presidential spokesperson Bayo Onanuga says the government understands the plight of the people, but explains that the new plane would save the government money spent on maintenance and fuel costs on other planes, running into millions of dollars yearly. He also noted that the plane belongs to the office of the president.
And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Giles Gibson reporting.
Programming made possible by donations from the following.
New Health. This summer, you're invited to embark on your wellness journey with New Health. Their dedicated staff is here to listen to your concerns and collaborate with you to create a personalized healthcare plan that integrates with your lifestyle. Appointments can be scheduled at 509-935-6004. Prioritizing both your health and the well-being of your loved ones, New Health is committed to bringing healthcare into communities and communities into healthcare since 1978.
KCHW thanks New Health for supporting public radio in Stevens County.
And by Fired Up Pizza. Fired Up Pizza, located at 206 East Main Avenue in downtown Chewelah, offers craft beverages and brick oven fired pizza, including a variety of sandwiches, salads, pasta, and homemade soups. Featuring weekly events such as bingo, karaoke, and live music. Fired Up Pizza also has space for your private event and offers both in-house and off-site catering services. Open daily at 11:30 a.m. for lunch and dinner. For more information, visit their Facebook page or contact Fired Up Pizza at 509-936-9121. Fired Up Pizza is a proud supporter of public radio in Stevens County.
Your KCHW morning show made possible by a donation from God-Fearing Brothers Auto Center. God-Fearing Brothers specializes in auto services, including repair, maintenance, and detailing. They also stock a full selection of tires, make glass repairs, offer towing, and have an auto sales lot on the corner of Highway 395 and Main Street at the light. For more information, you can visit the Auto Service Center at 806 East Main in Chewelah. Find them online at godfearingbrothers.com or by phone at 509-935-6414. KCHW-FM thanks God-Fearing Brothers for supporting public radio in Stevens County.
And by Chewelah Flooring.
Chewelah Flooring at 214 East Clay in the 3rd Street Mall offers a wide variety of products including carpet, ceramic and porcelain tile, vinyl and laminate planks, and vinyl sheet flooring. Chewelah Flooring carries products for both commercial businesses and residential homes, including brands like National Flooring, Del Tile, Mannington, and Mohawk. They also offer blind repair. For more information, you can visit online at ChewelahFlooring.com, call 509-935-8021, or via email at ChewelahFlooring@gmail.com.
This is KCHW 102.7.
You got some for us? Good morning. It's a KCHW Morning Show. It is Thursday. This is myself, Chuck Ritchie. I'm here with Scott Ellen. I thought you were going to lead us in with a sound effect, Scott.
I was, and I had my microphone muted during all the thank you sponsors, and then forgot it. And there's a button you can press on your end that says Scott unmute your mic, and it pops up on my screen.
Where is that?
It is down on the more, the little more button on the bottom of Zoom. If you open it, there's one in there that says ask them. Maybe I think it only pops up for the person who's hosting it, like you, because I don't see it on my end. But it's because I do it to Val all the time. I'm like, Val, unmute your microphone.
I don't see that, but I love it. Like a little snarky.
Yeah, maybe. So if I mute it again, it might show up. Maybe because I'm not muted, it's not there.
There you go.
There is a button that you can do it. And I don't want to mute my. And then my lips are just moving, but there's no sound. Is that a good effect?
That was great.
All right. We need one morning sound effect. This is for you, Chuck.
Okay.
Hey, something. You ought to be doing radio commercials. How to talk a lot and say nothing.
Sometimes I don't. Yeah, sometimes I don't even use real words. I just make noises over the air.
Put a new light in the studio here in Maine, and I'm really not enjoying it. If you look at me on the webcam, if you're watching today, I've got this really nice brown hair on the bottom half of my head. And look what's happened since I started growing my hair. The entire top of my head is gray, and the bottom half of my hair is brown. That's how fast I went gray. I'm wondering when I became that scared.
Yeah, I was going to say, Scott, unfortunately, I don't think that's the lighting in the studio.
Hey, but at least it's staying on my head.
Don't you love it? I ran into somebody the other day I hadn't seen in a while, and they looked at me and they kind of stepped back and they're like, "Man, your beard's getting gray." like, wow, that's the intro to our conversation. Good to see you too, buddy.
That's not very nice at all. Let's see if we got some nice weather for you, though.
Yeah.
We're heading toward that weekend today. 88, mix of clouds and sun. 56 for an overnight low and partly cloudy. For your Friday, 76 and 48 under cloudy skies. 10% chance of rain. Now Saturday, mostly cloudy. Get this high temperature, 66.
That sounds like heaven.
Overnight low of 47, mostly cloudy skies and 15% chance of rain. Sunday right now, mostly sunny, 74. Mostly sunny Monday, 79. Partly cloudy Tuesday right now, 72. We do have some warm weather right to the transition into September, where we're back up in the 90s. We got hit with 3 days of 60-degree temperatures in Maine over the past few days, and it has actually started, and it did it early last year, it actually started turning the leaves.
Really?
Yes. So it's cool in my yard because about a quarter of it turns red of the different trees, and we have one tree that turns the most beautiful shade of maroon. As you know, I have some friends from Chihuahua. I'm not going to throw out their names just because we don't want people to know they're not home.
Right.
Yeah, and they're going to be here to visit, and they were really worried that they were going to be too early to the East Coast to see the fall foliage. It's a big deal. They call them leafers, people that travel around and, look at the changing colors. But it looks like they're going to be able to catch some of it, so I'm excited for them because they were
that's awesome.
They were worried they were going to be too early, but it looks like it's starting early because of the cooler temperatures.
I know that was when we lived in Tennessee. That was one of the greatest things about it, man. Up in the Smoky Mountains, they just turn. It just looks like fire going. It's so beautiful.
And if you can get to a high point where you can see across the top of the trees, because a lot of that country's flat. So if you can find it like a place to observe it, it's crazy to look out across a forest like that. I did it in Missouri, so probably kind of the same thing as Tennessee. And I mean, you have shades of green, shades of red, shades of yellow, shades of brown, and they almost look like, because it's all those deciduous trees, like clouds, and like you could step off the top of the cliff and just walk across them. It's pretty amazing looking.
It is gorgeous. I love the fall here, but it kind of goes whoop and it's over with.
It goes from, hey, it's kind of cool. Oh, it's snowing.
Right. the fall and that whole eastern, what would you call it? The inland East Coast or something, all along the, everything from the Mississippi River over is, in fall time is just gorgeous from top to bottom.
And pictures don't do it justice. When you see it yourself, it's kind of awe-inspiring. So
it is, like you say, it really feels like it's just a solid mat of beautiful colors. Yeah.
Yep.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Really light on the events this week, aren't we?
It really, really is.
A little break from the hustle and bustle of Chihuahua.
Right. It's kind of nice. It's the food bank is open today from 10 to 2. Then tomorrow morning, we've got the Chamber of Commerce open at not open, but they're going to be at the casino from 7 to 8 a.m. Adult pickleball back up. What's that?
Weekly meeting.
Weekly meeting. Yep. 7 to 8 a.m. Everybody's invited. They actually really love it when people show up to the Chamber of Commerce meetings. They really, really do. Adult pickleball from 9 a.m. to 11:30. Then 11 to 3:30 tomorrow is the Chihuahua Farmers Market. We're gonna be there. We even have new surveys that came from our board members that created their little cards you can fill out, little postcards. They're asking for some little demographic information and what you're going to listen to, if you're a listener or not. Just a quick little where you are, what you want to hear, and some stuff like your zip code and drop of blood, the name of the street you grew up on, first pet, all the important information. No.
I didn't even know we were doing that. I didn't even see one.
Oh, you didn't? Oh, I figured.
No, I've been totally left out of the loop.
Oh, man. I don't have any in the studio here. I would hold it up to the screen.
Is this Dawn and Brandon at work again?
Yes.
They've been doing a lot of stuff.
Yes, it is.
Good job.
It is. Yeah, I think it was Dawn, actually, that made these up. So good job. All right. And then this weekend also, I've got it open another tab here, is the Stevens County Fair. It's happening this weekend. So little quiet in Chewelah, but the fair is happening starting today through Sunday.
And mild temperatures to get out and enjoy it. Be baking in the heat. Nice.
I'm looking at that forecast, and we had planned on going on Saturday with the family. And it's going to be not even 70 degrees, a little bit of clouds. It's going to be.
I might need a sweater.
I know. We'll be able to wear a hoodie to the fair. It'll be amazing. I'm so looking forward to it. We do have a couple things coming up a little bit longer term. September 12th is Taste of Chewelah. That's coming up. And we've been doing the interviews with all the artists that have donated art to the art auction afterwards. They've been joining us every Tuesday at 4 p.m. for the last few weeks. We've had some really great interviews with those. You can catch those on our Facebook page.
Or YouTube.
Or YouTube, exactly. I'm not sure if we're going to have one this week. Diane Evans, she's been doing the interviews. I don't think they have anybody on the schedule for next week. And it is the day before my birthday as well.
Ooh.
So I might head out of here a little early and go do birthday stuff with the family.
Cool.
So this week we had the organizers of Chewelah's Got Talent. That's the wrong event, Scott. Taste of Chewelah. We had them in talk about some of the history behind Chewelah's Got, or doing it again. Some of the history behind Taste of Chewelah, and just some of the strategies for it and what to expect at the art gallery. There's a strategy,
There is.
And we vary it up every year because 1 year I don't think we've ever made it to every restaurant that's serving food. This year there are more restaurants than ever serving food. There are 11 restaurants this year serving food.
I tend to get bloated and tired and then just stay at the bar.
Right. That's fair.
Good times on the streets of Chewelah, though.
Just leave your house, go straight to the brewery. You can stay there till the art auction. No, but it's good. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. And what's the date there for Taste of Chewelah one more time?
September 12th. September 12th. Those tickets are available at Valley Drug, Acres Drug, or online at ChewelahArtsGuild.org. And they, just like people know, those tickets generally do sell out, and they generally do sell out early.
All right.
So, if you don't.
All right. Some news headlines. If you're all done with events,
I am. That was a quick one. It feels weird to stop that soon.
Yeah, I'm going to go quick too because we're doing things a little different. We have an interview today. Who are we going to be interviewing, Chuck?
Her name is Karin Delia, and she is a lady in Spokane who had her tiny home stolen out of her storage lot. This is a story that actually kind of went viral. People around the U.S. have been talking about it. You and I both, we've spent extended amounts of time traveling around the country and various states of tiny things, tiny houses, remodeled RVs, that sort of thing. You had your zombie van, and I know you've done it in RVs, and we had a gutted RV we traveled in for about 4 years, and she had hers stolen from her. A tiny home that she had built, did a lot of the work herself, had friends help, and I can't imagine the violation of having that stolen. And then it was returned to her last Thursday with it's covered in plywood. They had we'll let her fill in the details.
Okay.
But yeah, it's basically a story of it's kind of gripped a lot of these tiny home communities online and in various groups, and I just thought it'd be good for her to get her story out. And we're gonna be we're gonna be sharing it with a bunch of tiny home groups around the internet, social media.
So she's kind of popular, and you were talking about some of the sites that she's belongs to and followers and things. So we're looking at the possibility of crashing our Facebook server today.
Right.
I don't know if we have enough bandwidth for all these people to watch, but we're hoping. We're hoping.
I'm excited about it. I
think
think
we'd like to at least get a couple thousand likes out of the deal, right?
right. You know,
Right.
it's one of those you see it on the local news, and then you open your Facebook, and it's like, oh, they're talking about that too. Oh, look, they're talking about it in Germany. You know, it's like, oh wow.
So we have a problem because we're in a small town.
Mhm.
But if we could up our viewer or our followers on both Facebook and YouTube to 5,000 from the just over 1,000, I think we are now. Then it would monetize our two sites, and your little public radio station would start making money off people watching our videos.
That would be cool. You know,
That would be
they've actually created a new limit where you don't need those 5,000 listeners, and you can actually start monetizing it earlier.
Okay.
We still don't meet those requirements, but we have. It does tell you how much money you've racked up so far. I believe at last count the other day, it was at $8.20 we've made on.
No way!
Facebook. Yeah.
Wow, station's getting rich.
Right. You need to have $100 minimum before they'll actually pay you anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're working our way there.
We got a little ways to go.
All right, just a couple news headlines, and then we're going to roll out wacky news.
Yeah.
We'll just cover the Yodel today. First story on the Yodel is Waltz making a pitch to moderate and swing state voters. Minnesota Governor Tim Waltz, former teacher and coach, accepted the Democratic vice presidential nomination last night with a speech that included appearances by former students, his son, and a rousing pep talk. And me and Chuck were talking before the show. He's very presidential. Wishing he would have ran for president.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He's kind of like he's the warm hug the country needs. It feels like.
Yeah. He pitched himself as a Midwestern everyman who could appeal to moderate and swing state voters and discussed his progressive policy on social and economic issues. If you go to USA Today, there's a fact check on everything he said. Many speakers sought to reclaim freedom as a democratic principle, contrary to the ideas in the GOP-linked Project 2025. Freedom isn't free, Oprah Winfrey said in a surprise address. She said it requires commitment from all of us. And tonight, Vice President Kamala Harris will accept the presidential nomination, where she is expected to tell the story of her middle-class upbringing and career and pitch herself as a president for all Americans. All right. Under the category, in case you missed it, in her first statement since canceling her Austria shows due to an alleged terror plot, Taylor Swift said it was a devastating decision, but that she was grateful to be grieving concerts and not lives. Now, no word on yet. I'm hoping she comes out after the fake AI videos from Trump's team having her endorse him.
Yeah, I saw that.
Fake. All fake. So hopefully she comes out against that. She has not broke her silence against that. And she's a formidable force with 500 million followers.
Right. If more than that, probably. That's
Well, that's a formidable force, though. If she comes out and goes under the support and asks her followers to elect a certain person, there could be a huge number of votes. Hence why the Trump team would want to do a fake AI endorsement, and that's sad. It's more lies
because they want to get sued.
They're not helping themselves.
Put that cookie down now.
Yeah.
I mean,
All
talk
right,
about a monumentally bad decision. Create a fake endorsement. That's
yes.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, but how many people go, no, that's real. That was real. It doesn't matter what she says. It was real.
It doesn't matter what she says. She endorsed Trump.
Yeah. Donald Trump delivered remarks at his first outdoor rally yesterday since surviving an assassination attempt. He was protected by bulletproof glass. All right.
Good. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad I'm really glad that nothing bad happened out of that. I'm glad that whoever that was missed and they took him out, because that is not acceptable. That was horrible. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure Russians today scratching their heads over their all-powerful military, as Ukraine now has advanced further into Russia in an effort to create a buffer zone on the border. They've actually launched drone attacks on Moscow.
I saw that.
They are taking it to the heart of Russia. Good for them.
And Russia's getting spanked by little Ukraine.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have invaded their country.
Right?
All right. New report found the U.S. labor market may have been cooling for months before initially believed. News comes that over 28% of Americans right now looking for new jobs. 28% of us.
28%. Wow.
Because I'm sure a lot of them need to make more money. Because groceries are ridiculous. And last one, before we do what's happening today, a new study found about 2/3 of common baby foods sold at top U.S. grocery stores do not meet global health standards, in part due to high amounts of sugar, low amounts of protein. Read that label before you feed it to your kid.
Right? Especially a baby. You know, to go back really quick to the grocery prices inflation, I saw really, it was a breakdown of pricing and everything that actually made me really mad. If you look at the last 4 or 5 years since the grocery inflation has really just gone through the roof, and you look at the profit margins from some of these larger corporations, especially ones that the government's trying to block these monopoly mergers, their profit margin increase and inflation matches dollar for dollar. Groceries do not cost more. Grocery stores are charging more. These great big chains.
This needs to be stopped. It needs to be stopped. You know, I get it. It's America and free commerce and all that kind of stuff. But this is greed run rampant with no restrictions.
Yeah. So. And they're lying to you. They're citing supply chain issues or this or that or making excuses.
Jacked up the salary of all their CEOs.
Yeah.
It was in the news today. Dunkin' Donuts CEO flying 3 times a week, 1,000 miles in a private jet because he doesn't want to move to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, it's sick.
All right.
It's sick.
We got to keep moving here.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, what's happening today? 8 more episodes of that 90s show, season 2, dropped overnight. No one noticed. In baseball, Guardians and Yankees play again at 1:05 Eastern on the Major League Baseball app. Broadcast coverage of the DNC begins at 7 p.m. tonight Eastern on the major news networks. And as we said earlier, the Vice President will give her address. In women's basketball, Wings and Liberty take the court at 7 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. And you are all caught up.
Oh,
I think we got just enough time before our guests arrive and we go to an early break. That we can roll out today's odd news.
Ooh.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit and let's go.
Yeah.
We're burning daylight.
Mostly.
It's the world of strange. A world gone wacky.
Out here, due process is a bullet.
And some of the scariest people on the planet.
I think you're bluffing. Be afraid. You know, you look mighty pretty when you get mad.
Thank you.
It's your odd news on KCHW.
Just sit back and enjoy the show.
All right, before we kick off the news attack, Chuck, is the front door open?
The front door is open.
Okay. Good job. That's a problem for us.
I know.
Right.
That happened to me. What was it last time we had somebody in? We had an interview going on, and I kept waiting for him to come in. I'm like, man, I don't know if they're going to come in. I looked down at my phone. There's a text. Hey, your door's locked.
All right, here comes news attack. First part true, second part the worst joke you've ever heard, and Chuck Ritchie kicking it off.
That is right. Oh, you know what? I just clicked the wrong button, and I went to a completely wrong page.
Want me to do it?
No, I got it. Okay, so some Republicans, they're upset with their national committee because the Democratic National Convention has more energy and positivity. Plus, they have bowls and bowls of free Doritos.
And an open bar. Some estimates suggest that the Titanic could decay and vanish around its 125th birthday, which would be 2037. After 125 years, don't we all just kind of decay?
Right? Maybe.
I started early. If you look at my body, it's obviously decaying.
Oh. You know, maybe if it completely dissolves, the rich people will stop trying to see it in private submarines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not funny. Sorry. All right.
Yeah.
A survey found that typically...
That one fell flat, Chuck.
Wow, Scott.
You crushed it. Oh. That joke was like a wet pancake.
Wow.
Too early.
Yeah. Too soon.
All right,
Too
sorry.
soon. Sorry. We apologize.
Sorry. Sometimes I can't help it.
It's not a tumor.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
You spent too much time around radio towers, Scott.
Way too much. I go in the dark. You can see the people around me right now, light green.
You can. It's the gray hair. Yeah.
All
All right. So this other survey found that Americans typically use only half of their vacation days. Actually, we take our entire vacation. It's just that we spend half of it waiting in line for airport security. Yeah.
Yeah. Who goes? I don't understand when people go to Disney World and stand in line for hours to go on one ride.
You stand in line for an hour. You take a 15-second ride. You stand in line for an hour. You take a 15-second ride.
Miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable.
Yeah.
All right. Scientists say that we can explain why so much roadkill is snakes. Because of the way snakes move, concrete slows them down. Squirrels, on the other hand, are just plain dumb.
Right? What about the deer? We had one. We were driving home from Republic a few weeks ago, and a deer like jumped out in front of us, like almost like excited to be jumping in front of us. And we stopped the car, and it just stood there and slow blinked at us. We were honking our horn.
I think that's just Washington deer. I think it's just deer in Washington. I really do. Okay? I came up on one on the road, and I see him, and I start to slow down, and he's looking both directions to cross the highway, and then he pours on the steam, thinking he's got enough room, and books it.
Wow. You know, we need Alan to be here to help take care of those deer, the dumb ones.
He's still blaming me for all of his deer hits.
Is he? Oh yeah, because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I told him he wasn't a local till he hit a deer, and then in his first year he took out 3.
Right.
And apparently he's still at it. All right, we got to keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
Keep going. All right. Study found that spiders thrive better in the city than the country. Spiders are made for the city, though. No matter how many grocery bags they're carrying, they can all still manage to push the elevator button.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that's where I need the third arm, man, for carrying groceries.
You're not touching me with that third arm. That's disgusting. 74% of adults think they're a better driver than anyone else on the road, including me. Sounds like 74% of adults forget to ask their backseat driver for their performance reviews.
Ooh.
You know what my daughter always says when she's in the car?
What's that?
She always says, "Oh my God, we're John Wicking it again."
You know, when my wife and I go places, I usually do the driving, not because it's a manly thing or because, it's an ego thing. It's just because she doesn't like me not shutting up while she's driving. Slow down. Oh. You didn't stop for that red light. Are you going to tailgate this close? Yep. Are we really in that big of a hurry? My head hits the back of the seat and I go,
All right, last one is you, Chuck.
All right. 74% of adults think they're better driving than everyone else on the road. I think we heard this somewhere. My weakness, though, is, this is true story, understanding driving directions, which is why my wife calls me the U-turn king.
So you downgraded from Burger King to U-turn king. Okay.
I am. I'm terrible with directions.
All right, Chuck, off your cheat sheet, we go on to wacky but true. We don't add anything to these stories. They're totally true. No fake news. But we do add a movie or television sound effect to try and make them sound a little funnier. First one up is Rebecca and Dana Moda from Brewster, Massachusetts, who experienced an unexpected birth plan for their daughter, Summer. On their way to the hospital, Rebecca went into labor, prompting Dana to make a dramatic decision. As Rebecca started to give birth on the side of the road, Dana found himself delivering his daughter in their Land Rover. He assisted with the birth and then made a stop at Dunkin' Donuts, where Dana proudly cut the umbilical cord using a sterilized X-Acto knife from the restaurant.
Why does Dunkin' Donuts have sterilized X-Acto knives?
For exactly this kind of thing, cutting umbilical cords.
Why is that the part of that story that stuck out to me?
I don't know.
Yeah, Brock, launching Dunkin' now.
Proceed with the ducking.
This is a holy moly donut shop, huh? Say to the guys, holy moly donut shop.
Holy moly donut shop.
It's cool, man. Chili and donuts ain't working out for me no how.
That does make me excited for the Friday market on Friday.
Chili and donuts.
I'm hoping the donut shop is back. They've been on a little vacation, and I think this week they're back. So I'm just saying, Friday market.
Looking for some donuts.
I know, right? All right. So in England, 4 robbers entered a coin shop armed with guns and knives. They whipped out several large sacks and stuffed them full of valuable coins. But they should have done a little weight training before they took the job. The sacks were so full and so heavy they couldn't lift them. Not wanting to take time to remove any of the loot, the crooks just left empty-handed.
Aww.
Now off you go, the both of you, and remember, don't come back empty-handed.
Oops.
That's the real reason I'm not a bank robber.
What did they whip out, Chuck?
They whipped out their sacks.
You sure gave an awkward pause there.
Well,
you were laughing inside, weren't you?
I was trying not to say what was in my head.
Wow.
I think of the time and the money I've wasted on your training, and you still turn out to be a blithering idiot. You're an utter failure. You make me sick.
I'm going to have difficulty talking for the rest of the show because I bit my tongue so hard on that joke. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Really?
Well, metaphorically. Really? Yeah.
Okay. All right. What do I think it's my turn. Guys, if you want to upset your wife or your ex-wife, bring home your girlfriend.
Ooh.
A woman named Tanya Boyle created a stir at her Nashville area home when she confronted her ex-husband Charles for bringing his girlfriend home. Altercation led to Tanya's arrest for aggravated criminal trespass. According to Charles, Tanya lived in a separate section of his basement with no access to his living space. When Charles arrived home with his girlfriend, Tanya became agitated and demanded entry. Despite being asked to leave, she pushed her way into his part of the house and refused to go. Police intervened and then detained Tanya. Okay, and here's my ex-wife sound effects.
Sorry, everybody, to excuse my space cadet wife here. Let's just say the meds aren't helping.
Is this your wife?
Ex-wife. Oh, Howard, excuse me, but your wife's cookies are out of this world.
And that's all that's really important.
I have some advice for Tanya on how to deal with all this and move along.
Please.
Get over it. Why don't you bring somebody home yourself, Tanya?
Yeah,
you're split up. You're living in separate areas of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Good reason not to live with your ex. Just saying.
I think it's you, Chuck.
Okay. A woman in China developed a rather large appetite for, get this, her pet's fur. Ooh. The 27-year-old woman consumed hundreds of servings of fur from her toy poodle. She got her first taste while cleaning up the dog's fur balls at home. Snacking on the dog's fur soon became a daily addiction. Eventually, she had to go to the surgeon to have a softball-sized fur ball removed from her stomach.
Oh.
What makes you see that and say, I wonder?
I've got a recording of the point where she realized she had a problem.
That I've heard that's a thing. There's all sorts of weird compulsions that people eat weird, bizarre things.
Yeah.
Remember in the 80s? I think it was HBO did a show about that. And they would feature different people that were addicted to eating weird things every week.
Like nails and things. Yeah.
Yeah, there was somebody that literally they ate broken glass. There was a person that was addicted to drinking antifreeze, and they were still alive.
Woo!
Yeah.
Small doses.
He was banned from all the local hardware stores.
Get pictures of him up. Don't sell antifreeze to this guy.
Yeah.
All right. This is my favorite story of the day and sound effect. German woman thought she had been robbed when she returned to her car to find $700 missing. Then she noticed her dog was vomiting, so she took him to the vet. The vet gave the dog an injection. After 20 minutes, 6 of the missing bills reappeared. Doesn't say from which end. Dog did spit out the rest of the money in shreds, along with some bank statements. And now here's a word about the whole situation.
Your dog certainly has a surprised look on his face. Yeah.
Well, that's because you're looking at his butt.
Oh. Then he's certainly not going to enjoy that treat that I just fed to him.
Oops.
That gives
All right.
new meaning to the term money laundering, though.
On this last one, you got two different, like, one-sentence stories. You need to pause after the first one so I can play something.
Okay. So there's two recent unconventional legal incidents. The first one here, a Texas man set up explosives on public toilet seats. Wow.
That'll stop you from just sitting around.
And
ow, it's horrible.
If this next one isn't the most Russian thing you've ever heard, a Russian chess player caught trying to poison her rival by spreading mercury on the chessboard.
She's not a woman. She's the Terminator.
For real.
Yeah.
Wow. Horrible.
That is horrible. Poisoning your chess opponent with mercury. That's medieval stuff right there.
Oh, wow. All right. We are going to go to break early.
Okay.
And thank our sponsors. Deliver some news while we get reset. When we come back, our guest name is Chuck.
Her name is Karin Delia.
All right. Karin?
Karin,
all right,
correct.
So Karin's going to be here, and she's going to be talking about tiny houses. So we want you to stay right here on Northern Lights Public Radio. We are KCHW 102.7.
Oh, noises!
You're way off. I say you're way off this time, son.
Go ahead and run. Run home and cry to mama.
Stop singing! Well, it's no wonder you don't have any friends.
The Public News Service NOAA Newscast, August 22nd, 2022. I'm Mike Clifford. Unionized AT&T workers in Kentucky are continuing their strike against the company over bargaining delays.
The strike continues over what CWA's Beth Allen says are the company's unfair labor practices, adding that AT&T hasn't sent negotiators to the table who have authority to make decisions.
And so without people at the table who can make decisions, we can't move forward toward a new contract that is fair to the workers and provides what they need.
Last week, more than 17,000 AT&T technicians, customer service representatives, and others who install, maintain, and support the company's residential and business wireline telecommunications network walked off the job. In a statement, AT&T said it remains committed to reaching a fair agreement with CWA District 3 and has offered to bring a federal mediator to the process. Nadia Ramlagan reporting.
The current contract between the CWA and AT&T Southeast expired August the 3rd. Next, from NBC News, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. intends to end his independent presidential campaign and endorse former President Donald Trump. That's according to two sources familiar with the plans. The sources cautioned talks are still ongoing, but said there will be clarity by the end of this week. One of the sources said the campaigns are working toward a joint appearance. NBC notes the decision to drop out will end the most prominent third-party candidacy in the race. Kennedy announced Wednesday that he will give a campaign speech addressing the path forward. That was days after his running mate said the campaign faced a choice about staying in the election or dropping out to back Trump. Meantime, a close primary race in Washington state is highlighting the issue of vote splitting and how ranked choice voting could provide a solution. Our Eric Tegedoff explains.
The Commissioner of Public Lands race is still too close to call more than 2 weeks after the election and could be heading for a recount. It's a top two primary, meaning the two highest vote getters will go on to the general election. Tony Ivey with Washington Conservation Action says that's created an odd situation where the majority of Washingtonians voted for Democratic candidates, but two Republicans could face off in November.
We became very concerned about the potential of vote splitting, and while Washington voters
heavily support climate-friendly candidates and heavily support climate action, we end up with a situation where, despite the majority of voters selecting a climate-friendly candidate, two non-climate-friendly candidates could end up in the general election.
Ivey says this could have been avoided by using a choice voting system that would have let voters rank the candidates who aligned with their views.
Ranked choice voting is catching on across the country, including in Washington, where Seattle will implement this system in city primary elections. According to Fair Vote Washington, not every city or county in the state can do this. The organization has been pushing the legislature to pass a local options bill. This is Public News Service. The next time you drive over a newly built highway in Minnesota, the concrete may have been poured by a Native American, trained through a pre-apprenticeship program. The effort is designed to create more career pathways for younger Indigenous adults.
For the past several years, Moke Eagle Feathers of the local 633 Cement Masons has helped lead the 10-week training camp in New Brighton, with this year's session recently wrapping up. Prior to the summer, he goes to Native American reservations around the state to recruit participants. Those who sign up get a rigorous education of what it's like to do this type of work.
We're teaching a skill that a robot will never be able to learn.
He says the no-nonsense vibes illustrate how demanding cement mason work is, especially in the many types of weather Minnesota throws at outdoor workers. If they graduate, participants are on track for in-demand, financially stable union jobs. That's welcome news to these individuals, with the Bureau of Labor Statistics noting that Native Americans often have higher unemployment rates than the total population. I'm Mike Moen.
And as we approach the general election, the battleground state of Pennsylvania, where every vote counts, is seeing a push for more voter education and engagement.
More than 8 million registered voters have the opportunity to cast a ballot for the November 5th election. Brianna Ripka with the League of Women Voters Pennsylvania says the league's website, vote411.org, is a one-stop shop for all aspects of the voting process. She says voters can check their registration status and see the specific races on their ballot, along with candidate information.
By entering your address, you can discover your districts, view the candidates running in those districts, find your polling location, as well as access a wealth of other important information. Along with seeing the races and candidates on your ballot, you can view candidates' responses to our questions presented side by side.
Ripka says voter participation is particularly important since the decisions will ultimately affect issues from healthcare to education.
The league platform now provides detailed guidance on how to request, fill out, and submit mail-in ballots, including updated deadlines and rules that vary by state. Next, wildfires are becoming bigger and more frequent in Colorado and across the Mountain West, and health experts are offering tips to breathe easy during bad air quality days.
Denver Health pulmonary physician Dr. Anuj Mehta says pregnant women, infants, children, older adults, and people with heart or lung disease are most at risk.
Wildfire smoke has a lot of particulate matter, so really, really small, like microscopic particles that can cause inflammation in the lungs. Just breathing in that particulate matter, that inflammation may not just stay in your lungs. It can really cause inflammation around your body.
I'm Eric Galatis.
This is Mike Clifford for Public News Service, member and listener supported. Hear us on interesting radio stations, your favorite podcast platform. Find our content and trust indicators at publicnewsservice.org.
Broadcasting from beautiful Chewelah, Washington, this is Northern Lights Public Radio, KCHW 102.7.
Your KCHW morning show is made possible by donations from Chewelah Flooring.
Chewelah Flooring at 214 East Clay in the 3rd Street Mall offers a wide variety of products, including carpet, ceramic and porcelain tile, vinyl and laminate planks, and vinyl sheet flooring. Chewelah Flooring carries products for both commercial businesses and residential homes, including brands like National Flooring, Dell Tile, Mannington, and Mohawk. They also offer blind repair. For more information, you can visit online at ChewelahFlooring.com, call 509-935-8021, or via email at ChewelahFlooring@gmail.com.
You can dance, it's okay. Good morning. Welcome back to the KCHW Morning Show. We are back here with myself, Chuck Ritchie, Scott Allen, and our guest in the studio is, your name is Karin, is it Delia? Am I pronouncing the last name right?
Last name is actually Potter, just like Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it one of those where your Facebook name is something different?
Yeah, you just added me, Chuck.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry. I should have checked with that first, huh?
That's okay.
We're here with Karin.
Yeah.
Good morning, Karin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Yeah. It was a beautiful morning. I'm not used to getting up this early, and my friend is a morning person, so we were talking on the drive about how it's special for me to be up in the morning and getting to see the sunrise. And she's like, "This is what I always see."
It's nice occasionally, isn't it, to sort of get up when you're not used to it?
Yeah.
What's your normal wake up time?
Oh,
we want to out you again.
You're outing me left and right here, guys. No, I'm a night owl, so I tend to wake up right before I have to go to work.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I myself am a night owl, but unfortunately, I also have to get up early in the morning, so that's usually a bad combo.
That's a bad combo.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah. On another day, we can talk about the importance of sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a different conversation.
We'll do a whole show on that.
Yeah.
I could use some pointers on that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Some of your, you've been traveling. Did you travel with your tiny home? Did you live in it? Go ahead and fill us in a little bit on the backstory here.
Yeah, well, probably the most interesting thing about me is my love of tiny homes.
Mm-hmm.
This is something my family, I have a large extended family, and the main thing that they tell other people is that I lived in a tiny home and I own a tiny home. I got really interested in tiny homes early. I was an early adopter, as they say, and really had the dream of living in one since grad school, and got to the point. I'm trying to think of what year it was, 2012, somewhere in there, where I just thought, the way that dreams become reality is you just get started. So I bought the trailer. I didn't even have anywhere to put it.
Yeah.
Bought the trailer, and then things just came together over a period of about 5 years. Until I had a tiny home to live in. My tiny home is not a travel trailer tiny home. I can move it, obviously, as the story makes obvious. It's movable.
Yeah, right.
But moving it is, it's more of an ordeal than just being able to go from campsite to campsite.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So is it one where
is it on wheels like a giant flatbed?
No, it's on it's road legal. So it's on a trailer. It fits in a highway lane. But to hook it up takes, you have to have all the utilities prepared. And so it's one of these tiny homes that's made to have a parking spot in it for a longer period of time.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that involves skirting around the base.
Skirting and hooking up, water. You get the special water hoses and having, the big cord for RV cord for electricity, so on and so on.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about why you're here, what happened. And I know, like I said earlier, this story is kind of, I won't say grip the nation, but, it's kind of made the circles. There's a lot of these groups nationwide, and that's where, like I was saying earlier, I saw it in the local news and pop up in the newspaper and the headlines. And then all of a sudden I start seeing it here on this group, and here and like this person, this other country is talking about it.
Yeah. That's kind of the same experience I had.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was really amazed at how fast and far the word spread, honestly. So I guess for folks who don't know, I'm a tiny house enthusiast. I also own a tiny home, and recently my tiny home was parked at a very secure storage facility. I mean, so secure that there's somebody that lives there.
Right.
And it was stolen. And I found out about this in the middle of my workday, a week and a half ago. This was pretty recent. And once I got home from being at the storage unit and filing the police report, the first thing I did is I went on social media and made some posts about it, because not a particularly skilled social media person, but I thought this is the way to get my home back, is to spread the word, because they're driving with it. So obviously the thing to do is to try and have folks who are driving around looking for it. And it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so the word went out. You got people around the country sharing this story.
Yeah.
So do you think that helped you when it was recovered? And tell us a little bit about the recovery and what happened there.
I think it absolutely did. I think it's the reason why it was recovered is because folks in the community, were able to recognize my home. And I had a lot of messages come into my inbox on social media saying, I saw your home, I saw your home. And folks were calling it into Crime Check. This is actually how I learned that my home was still in the area. There was a period of about a day where I had no idea if they had taken my home and left. There was probably 6 or 7 hours between when my home was stolen and when I made it down to the storage unit to make the police report. And so in my mind, of course, I'm full of fear and I'm thinking, they could have made it pretty far. Luckily, it stayed pretty local. And as the word got out and folks were sharing the post, it was shared hundreds of times. It was shared as far away as Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Which is just really an incredible feeling of having a community come together to offer such wonderful support and assistance.
Right.
So I really think this is why that, and I also should be very intentional about mentioning the really good police work that the Spokane Police Department did, because they were really on the ball. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would imagine they had a lot of reports streaming in. It was kind of heartwarming to see the coverage that it got and how much just the people stepping in, and people were really, really keeping an eye out for it. And I know even around here, once I talked to you the other day, just being around town, said, "Oh yeah, I've got this great guest that's going to be on the show on Thursday. You know that tiny home that got stolen in Spokane?" And everybody around here was like, "Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she got that back, right?"
Oh wow.
So it's kind of fun to see the almost instant recognition about the story.
Yeah.
We're an hour away, but it's local enough, to where it's where we all get all this stuff. But then again, like I said, to see hundreds, thousands of people in all these different groups talking about it. And it's not just the couple that you and I are in, a couple of shared groups.
Right.
It is other groups. It is sales groups. It is. I started searching up places to share this, to get the word out. Anything that mentioned your post.
Yeah.
And it's there. I've shared this post with over 1 million people today.
That's. I don't know how to respond. That's amazing.
I don't mean to make you nervous. We do not have anywhere near that many people watching right now.
Okay. It's just us, right?
We'll probably get most of the views after this is over when we share the link. So.
Oh, okay.
But I did share the live link on a couple of them as we went live on the air this morning. But
okay.
only the few I could get to in the 30 seconds between the time we went live and the time the show actually started.
Okay. All right. Whew,
so now I imagine there's a case pending against these guys. So there might be things you can't mention. I don't know. But I want to hear about the recovery process and how that all panned out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on last Thursday, I got a call from a detective with the Spokane Police Department saying we found it. And the theory is that there was such a community response, and there were so many folks who were participating and helping with this effort of recovering my tiny home, that the people who stole it got spooked. They sort of realized, this is what I imagine, is that they realized that there's some kind of line here that got crossed. I think it's never okay, obviously, to steal something that isn't yours. I suppose there's a whole philosophical debate we could have about that. Les Mis comes to mind. But there's some kind of line here about stealing a home that I think really resonated with people. And so they abandoned it in a farmer's field just outside of Spangle. And the farmer's family called Crime Check, called it in. And I went down there and met the farmer. I mean, it was another amazing part of this experience.
Right.
There's all these different flavors of community that were a part of this story. The social media community, the tiny house community, the Spokane community, and certainly the farming community.
Yeah.
I mean, this farmer took a half a day of his workday during a really busy season to bring my tiny home into his yard and remove all. If you see the pictures, they covered it in plywood and tarps, and they painted the door, so it wasn't safe to drive on the road with all of that on it.
Right.
And he assisted the tow truck driver in removing all of these things from the tiny home so that it was safe to drive. And, very, very farming community experience. Very quickly, a lot of other folks were showing up because it's a story and they're a community they all wanted to see. So it was actually heartwarming to be standing in this, the yard of this farmer's land, having all of these folks there saying, we want to help with this. It was a beautiful part of this experience, which is kind of a strange thing to say.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it was, I believe, if I read the story right, it was his son that actually found it in the field?
His son-in-law, was up early and driving through the field and recognized it immediately, because even with the plywood disguising it, I'm doing air quotes here. I guess that doesn't translate to radio.
Right. Well, you are on video.
Oh, I'm on video. Oh, my God. I'm learning a lot about this as we're doing it. So he found it in the field and immediately called Crime Check, called his father-in-law. They run a cattle business down there, and then they also grow some things in their field. So, yeah.
So they were aware of this before they actually found it. They were aware of the story?
Right. Yeah, they recognized it really quickly because it was really making the rounds. And the Spangle community, so this is where it was found, was probably the highest concentration of phone calls and messages that I was receiving of folks saying, we saw it. And it was a really amazing feeling to be somebody receiving this much support in finding something that was really important to me.
That is great. And like you said, I love that it really shows the power of, a lot of people don't like social media. People love it, they hate it. But it does have its purpose, and it can do good. And this is a beautiful example of what can be done when people actually stop arguing about stuff and start working together using probably one of the most powerful tools known to man this day and age. So.
Yeah.
So you got it recovered, and have the police been able to, through maybe some cameras at the storage unit or anything like that, identify the people that stole it?
There is video from the storage unit. Part of the response from the police department is they released the video pretty quickly. So there was also, the part of the social media effort was also the participation of the Spokane Police Department in helping get the word out. There's an ongoing investigation. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to share, but I'll just say that there's an ongoing investigation.
I would err on the side of not sharing.
Yeah. In terms of trying to find the folks who took it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
you feel confident they will identify the people that stole it?
That's a really interesting question. One of the things that has been sort of particularly interesting for me as an individual is a lot of the responses I've gotten on social media have been, there's a lot of anger about this. I personally have not felt angry about this yet. That may come about. But my main feeling when my tiny home was stolen was I just felt really afraid. This is a place that I lived. This is a place I have said in other interviews, I felt the way that we feel about homes when our home is our safe place. Like, this is like somebody took a part of me. And so mostly what I felt was fear about what was happening to my home. And so the main thing that I'm just really grateful for is that it's been recovered. And the next steps in terms of the investigation, I do hope that there's accountability. I hope we get there. But for me personally, a lot of the resolution has really just come from having my home returned to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know they put plywood on it. They put tarps on the roof. They painted the doors. What kind of damage are you looking at? How badly was it?
I will find out about that later today. So part of the process, it was insured. It is insured. And so part of the process is that later today I'm meeting an insurance adjuster to do that very assessment and get a sense of what needs to be fixed.
Now, when you were in the field with the farmers and they were helping you get the stuff ready to tow it away, did the police tow it away to do an investigation first, or were you allowed to just take it straight home?
I was allowed to take it straight home, or it's parked on my friend's father-in-law's property right now, so it's safe. And the police were helpful in actually facilitating finding a tow truck company. So they helped me figure out how I was going to get it towed off of this farmer's property and taken somewhere safe. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So I know when we talked about this, you don't want to focus this interview on, we've got the nuts and bolts out of the way. We've got the bad stuff out of the way. You really wanted to give a message to people that are thinking about joining the tiny home community or living in a home or kind of struggling, to pay for their McMansions, or what's the message you really want to give people out of this?
Yeah, part of my worry, I've been a tiny home advocate since I learned about tiny homes, so it's been a long time. Part of my worry is that folks who were considering living in tiny homes would hear my story and then think to themselves, this isn't a safe way to live. There's too much risk. And, part of what I've been wanting to communicate through this experience is I really hope that folks don't have a takeaway from this that tiny home living is a negative thing or is a risky thing, because it's actually a really incredible way to live. And I think that there are pieces from this experience that I certainly am going to take away as lessons in terms of how to secure a tiny house. But I will also say this is a pretty extraordinary experience. The storage unit, the police department, the insurance company, the social media response. There's a very consistent message that this is unusual. What happened to me is unusual.
Right.
And tiny home living is, in my opinion, tiny home living has so many benefits that I hope that people who are considering living tiny don't feel deterred from this story.
Well, to add to it, I have heard news stories in the past where somebody's tiny home was stolen, but it's always similar to yours. It was not being lived in at the time. It was in storage. I've never heard of one where somebody was actually like living in their tiny home, because usually you got a bunch of stuff outside of it and around it, where somebody was living in their tiny home and came back and it, just disappeared. Maybe something like that's happened before, but I've never heard of one like that.
Yeah, there was one comment on social media in one of the larger tiny home groups where someone said, we've had stories like this pop up every now and then, but they are always recovered. And I think that there is something about sealing a tiny home that crosses some relational line for folks where there is a lot of energy and effort behind helping people be reunited with their home.
I agree. It seems egregious. It seems.
Yeah.
I don't. It does. There's something about it that I think it connects with people. I think the concept of tiny living itself. If anybody who's ever struggled, anybody who's ever not even struggled, because a lot of people, most of the people that do that do it by choice. A lot of people really, really dream someday of being able to make that choice, but they get stuck in their daily routine, or they get stuck in a huge mortgage, and they go through those social media groups, they flip through the catalogs, they see the stuff on TV and like, man, someday I want to do that. For those people, what would you say to them, the people that are interested in it, the people that love the ideas, they go through the designs, but hesitate to make that step?
So my day job, which is also the work of my heart, is that I am a mental health therapist. So I've been doing that for a long time, couple of decades. And I will say that more and more there's a conversation emerging in the mental health world about the impact on our emotional and physical well-being about living for our houses. And I've owned homes. I've owned, I call them stationary homes. So I've owned regular homes and I've lived in the tiny home. And I can say that my own experience, I'm a pretty, stable, self-aware person. I like to think. Jade could probably tell me. Yeah, she's nodding. Okay.
She's nodding.
She's like, yeah, that's probably true. But I will say that my mental health didn't just improve in my tiny home, it flourished. And I think where people get stuck is there's this script in our culture, there's this idea that the correct way to live is to get a home, it's an investment, but then you it is truly amazing the amount of time and energy and money it takes not just to own a home, but to maintain a home.
Right.
It is a relationship. And one of the big shifts and big surprises for me that it took me some time to adjust to in living in my tiny home was I had so much time on my hands. I had so much time on my hands. And at first, I didn't really know how to fill it. I can remember early on, I was so used to spending my Saturdays running errands and buying things from my home.
Yeah.
And I kept going out and doing that and then realizing I was buying all this stuff that I didn't even know where to put it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, I'm like, I don't need to be doing this. I can't just go out and be spending my time buying things. And what ended up happening over a period of probably the first 6 months is I realized that actually the way that I get to think about my life, the paradigm that is shifting here is that in living in the tiny home, I actually have the time to do the things I'm interested in. I get to read, I get to learn how to play guitar. I'm somebody who likes to be outside. I've never spent as much time outside as I did when I was living in my tiny home.
Yeah.
And so there really was this sense of alignment of my inner dream, not just of where I live, but how I live, my values, and what was being actualized in my day-to-day life.
Wow.
I think people that are into van life, I know Chuck's traveled in an RV. I traveled for 2.5 years in an RV. There is something about it. When and basically I sold my house, we moved into an RV and we hit the road.
Yeah.
And there is something that is so freeing about it. And one of the best feelings I felt, and I think you can, as a therapist, you'll relate to this. One of the most freeing things in my life is I wasn't a hoarder, but we as Americans accumulate stuff.
Yes.
Lots of stuff we don't need. And it took an entire month of yard sales. We did them every weekend for a month before the house sold. If it wouldn't fit into the RV, it obviously couldn't go. And then we gave the same option to our kids. If you were going to put it in the RV, besides clothing, it had to have 2 uses.
Yeah.
You had to be able to, and that was our thing. So we pared down till we got everything in the RV, and then we sold all that stuff and our furniture and everything. And it was like a weight when I got rid of that house and all the stuff I accumulated in the 15 years I was there. It was like a weight had been lifted off me. And I think so many people hoard stuff and it haunts you. And then if you die unexpectedly and haven't taken care of all your stuff, it burdens your kids or your relatives. So
I really relate to that. I think for me, I would even suggest that it's not even this threshold of hoarding. I think that we've so normalized that owning stuff is equivalent to safety and stability.
Right.
In our culture, that we don't realize that the amount of stuff we own is excess. And I know for me, I had a lot of fears going into, because it took me about 2 years to pare down everything so that I fit in the tiny home. And I had a lot of fear that came up around that of like, what if I need this? What if I sell it and I regret it? What if I get rid of this and it turns out it was this really special thing? What if I hurt someone's feelings because I get rid of a gift that they gave me? I remember this one really specific story where I was in my living room and I was in this process and I was looking at this item that somebody I love very dearly had given me, but every time I looked at this thing, it was like a wall hanging. Every time I looked at it, I just felt sad. And I realized that I was walking around my home having all of these unconscious emotional experiences all day long, surrounded by things that didn't necessarily make me feel connected to myself or connected to the way that I wanted to live. And the biggest surprise is when I got into the tiny home, there is not one item that I missed.
Yeah.
I never had a sense of like, oh, I wish I hadn't gotten rid of that, or I wish that I had kept that thing. I actually got into the tiny home, and probably about a year after living in it, I did it again. I did another major process of paring. I still felt like I owned too much stuff. And it got to the point of where I was like, I really have such a better calibration of of having what I actually need so that my stuff is serving me,
Right.
rather than my stuff dictating how I'm living my life. And up until I was in the tiny home, that was such an unconscious process that I didn't even realize. Like you mentioned earlier, the sense of a weight. I didn't even realize that was a weight that I was carrying.
Right.
And I think in the mental health world, we have this, we talk about anxiety, we talk about depression, we talk about fear, we talk about stress. These are the main things that we all feel, but are scared to talk about with each other. And the paradigm shift that I think we're heading toward is that actually anxiety, depression, stress, fear, these things aren't products of something being wrong internally. They're products of how we live culturally, and I think that that's changing.
Right.
And I think that's part of why the tiny home movement is becoming so much more mainstream, because people want to find a different way to live so that their lives are full of joy and connection,
As opposed to stuff.
as opposed to I would even say that we get the message that in order to live good lives, we have to work, and we work in service of buying stuff so that we can go out and do the things that we want to do, and it's really a flawed argument. It's a flawed argument because actually, when you switch it so that your work is serving your life and your stuff is serving your life instead of your life serving your work and serving your stuff, you actually have access to so much more choice.
Right.
Than you realize what is available when you're living in service of your job, your home, or your things.
Well, we mentioned the word, the hoarding word earlier.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's no, it's okay. It's I am from a long line of hoarders. My my grandparents were hoarders.
Yeah.
My parents, to a degree. I mean, hoarders. Hoarding nice things is still hoarding. When you don't have a empty surface in your house and you have rooms that you can't even go in anymore because you can't even open the door to those rooms anymore.
Right.
That's how I grew up. I married a wife who grew up as a military brat. They traveled light. The opposite. She's very minimalist. And that was one of the things early on in our relationship that was sort of this conflict always was, you go in the garage where I kept my stuff, and you couldn't even use the garage because there was just so much stuff, because that's just how I grew up. And like you said, going through the stuff, paring down, getting rid of 75-80% of the stuff you own is scary when you think about it.
Yeah.
But once you actually get into the process, once you break those sort of first, you're going to struggle with some of those things. You're going to, like you said, internally, mentally, you're going to figure out, do I really need this thing?
Right.
But once you get over that, once you see the stuff gone and feel that weight off of you,
the end is reward.
It is.
The end is rewarding.
It is.
I think. It was for me.
It becomes really cathartic.
I would even say the end is access to yourself. I'm somebody who thinks a lot about how to build self-reflection and self-awareness. This is what I do in my work. This is a big part of who I am.
Yep.
And I've read a lot of books. I went to graduate school. I've done a lot of experiences to try and learn about. I have never learned more about myself than when I moved into and lived in a tiny home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And when we did it, the experience of, and we traveled. We had an RV that we gutted it, and then we rebuilt it to suit our needs. Make sure the kids had their own beds and had separate areas that we could go to. But the experience of traveling with our kids and spending those 4 years, I think they were from 7 to 12 while we were traveling, which is such pivotal years in a kid. Man, I wouldn't have you couldn't pay me to give up that experience.
Yeah.
It was amazing. There were times when it was terrifying.
Yeah.
There were times when we would get stuck somewhere with no money, and we don't know if we don't know where we're going to go from here. And you just kind of sit and wait. A lot of times with slow paying clients, or we did work on the internet, and there would be times where we're waiting for someone to pay us, and we go somewhere where there's no service.
Yeah.
And we're just stuck. We have no way to make money.
Yeah.
And no money. But
Yeah.
you know what? Some of those were the best times.
Yeah.
You know, we got stuck in a winter storm in Oregon and unexpected. We were up in the high desert area. Got snowed in one night, the day after Halloween. We were going to take off that next day. We got like a foot of snow, and then it got to like 10 below zero and stayed that way for weeks. We had no propane. You couldn't, the highways were closed. We had no food except for we had just got done visiting my parents, and my mom had given me like 40 pounds of beets. And we had basic, pantry stuff and these like bags and bags of dirty, straight out of the ground beets. And I love beets.
Because I don't love beets. I'm listening to this story and I'm going, oh no.
That's the week they starved.
Oh man.
We got so creative at times with the things we had to do and the food we had to make that we ended up having always had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah. You know what I think when I listen to that story, I imagine somebody hearing that story and going, I'm never going to do that because that, people have different values. That sounds, I hear that story and I think that sounds like an adventure, but it was, what I think about there is really how tiny home living, I feel like such a car salesman where I'm like, this is a great option for you. Tiny home living is so adaptable to the person. It's not about doing, I'm not going to live in a tiny home the way your family lived in a tiny home.
Right.
Because I wanted it to serve my life. And I think that's part of what part of why I'm so vocal about tiny home living as a real option. We need it to become more and more mainstream. We need policy to catch up to tiny home living, because it really does give people the opportunity to shape their life to their values. And I think part of that is really understanding that, in learning about yourself, you also learn to access problem solving in a way where you build confidence. I have similar stories of living in a tiny home and realizing I've got to really figure this out. And I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I talk about one of the stories that when we were, I say stranded, we weren't stranded. We had our home, we had everything we needed with us.
Yeah.
It was one of those where we had a client, and my wife did, we ran a graphic design business online. Had a client that was slow to pay, and we'd run out of funds, and we just literally didn't have enough money to put gas in the tank. And we were in Colorado, and Colorado has a series of city parks. You're allowed to overnight, but like a night or two. We got stuck at this park. It was a beautiful park. They had a public pool. They had a museum. They had this beautiful duck pond with a water fountain. And we had talked to the police and explained our situation. We're stuck here for the time being. We don't know when we're going to be able to leave. And the police were like, great, thank you. You can stay here. If you can set up over here. They hooked us up with, water and power. And we became, for like a month, we would call in anything happening at night in the park.
Yeah.
We volunteered at the museum.
Oh, wow.
The swimming pool let us come in and let the kids hang out all day at the swimming pool.
Yeah.
And we became part of the park. We knew all the rangers. And it actually turned out to be such a wholesome, wonderful experience.
Another
we got
example
to work with all these people. Yeah.
of what access to community there is.
Right.
In living in a way where you're not focused on your things, you're focused on how you live in the relationships around you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And we got, we learned a lot, and we learned a lot about the area, and got some good fishing time in with the kids. There was a little fishing pond nearby.
Yeah.
It was great.
Now you were talking about the excitement behind tiny homes, and I get to see it all the time because we have, me and my kids, we have 2 tiny cabins. And we rent them out on Airbnb.
Oh, okay.
And it's all off grid, even though we're on the edge of town and everything could be powered. I did it all off grid. And about 30% of the people want detailed information on how I did it all. And I really enjoy, teaching them that and showing them my solar system, which a lot of the guys, they're really impressed, by the solar and curious and stuff.
Probably some of the ladies too.
Yeah, it seems to be more men. but maybe the ladies are just shy, because I'm a stranger. I don't know. But what I found, I really enjoy that. And then I always tell them, because I'm pretty much retired, is that, if you're going to be going out and buying stuff and you're really going to do this and you got any questions, you got my information. You can call me anytime. I love talking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm obviously in radio. I geek out about tech stuff, and I am always thrilled to share the information that I have. And it might not be perfect, but it might be more than they have right now. And I'm always willing to share that. And I always tell people, call me anytime.
That's
and
wonderful.
To basically a round robin here and get back to your point, is the excitement and the curiosity about this is definitely there.
I also would say that what you're sharing about, being excited to teach people, I've had that almost as a across the board experience. There, if you're interested in tiny homes, there are so many people out there who know how to do this, who want to help you figure this out, and they want to help you figure this out in a way that is accessible. There's folks all over Washington State. I'm thinking of Todd, who runs Seattle Tiny Homes in Seattle. Like, talk about somebody who wants to talk about tiny homes. This is his whole world. In Oregon, this is just my neighborhood, so these are the folks that I know. But all over, there are people who want to support you in figuring out how to design a home that works for you, how to make it accessible, how to get you in it, and how to support you in the process of the transition. And then they want to see your home. Everybody wants to see the home. Yeah.
Well, there's no shortage of tiny home people that are willing to talk about tiny home living. It's pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
And I even know I talked about this a little bit on the phone. Scott, you mentioned van dwelling earlier. A friend of mine would travel with her friends, a group of friends, and again, that kind of stuff, especially older retired folks, they will travel in groups, for safety in numbers, and just because they're their friends and they want to be with their friends, and live this sort of free, carefree, joyful life. One of their friends ended up writing a book about this whole experience. They got picked up by a movie studio and got turned into the movie
you were telling me about
Nomadland that won about 1 billion Oscars in 2021.
Wow.
And to see, for my friend who was here with us at the time, she was in the movie. She had a couple small parts. Her main role, she had a bigger speaking role that got taken out later on. But, to be able to watch her friends, because of this movement, in the most beautiful ball gowns, made up, on stage accepting an Oscar award.
Wow.
She was just like blown away.
Yeah.
And to get invited, they did the open screening, like when they did the first official opening of the movie, the screening with all the stars and the press and the red carpets. They did it with a bunch of vans at a drive-in movie theater.
Oh, that's so
with,
cool.
All the red carpet and all the stars and all the celebrities were all in their cars at a drive-in theater.
Oh, that's so cool.
With a bunch of van dwellers that came and basically did a rally.
I love that.
At this drive-in theater.
Yeah.
So again, community.
Yeah.
And, we talked a little bit, we haven't really touched too much about the economics of this. And I think right now, we were talking earlier about inflation and the prices right now.
Yeah.
This right now, not only is it a viable alternative, I wouldn't even call it an alternative, it's just a viable way to live.
Yeah.
You still have everything you need. You don't want for anything.
No.
Living in a tiny home.
No.
And the biggest joy that I've ever experienced as an adult is being in our tiny home on wheels.
Same.
And knowing it's ours.
Yeah.
We don't have any bills.
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
And it's so freeing.
It's so freeing. It's amazing. It really is. One of the things, there was a period of time, I keep pointing to my friend Jade, who also has been a tiny home dweller. There was a period of time that Jade and I were really trying to have some conversations with the city of Spokane around how, and we're not the only ones doing that, but around how to move this forward.
Right.
And one of the big barriers that I think is starting to shift is that we need more conversation at the local level about how to make tiny homes accessible, because when you live in a tiny home, it really is in my experience was that it was a different level of stability.
Right.
It's how I went debt free in my life. I have never put more towards retirement than when I was living in my tiny home. And the not just the weight off my back in terms of things, but the weight off my back in terms of if I live with some health issues, if I have a health crisis, that's okay. That's fine. I can afford to have a health crisis. I can afford to have to take some time off of work. I could afford to do trips and travel. I could afford to not kill myself working.
Right.
It really. I think I struggle to summarize the financial benefits.
Yeah.
And I think that that's changed a little bit since I was living in my tiny home, because I think as it becomes more mainstream, I do think the cost is going up.
It has.
And there's, it's something we're kind of sorting out. So like my tiny home is something that I built. Now in Washington State, there are certifications that you have to have in order to, quote unquote, to supposedly live in a tiny home legally. This is something that Todd McKellips knows a lot more about than I do. So the cost is going up, but when you think about, my friend Jade is a real estate agent, and when you think about the cost of homes today, I mean, it's not an option for a lot of people to live in a home and have a home that's yours. This is an option.
It is.
This is an option to live in a home, to have stable housing that you're not having to put 50% of your paycheck towards every month, and then still have access to having time to do the things that you want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Some communities are not friendly to it. They're afraid of what might happen to it. The city I'm in, when I put in ours, they came after me for building permits. And I said, wait a minute. This is not a fixed structure. I can move it easily. It's 240 square feet. How can you charge me a building permit? But they did, and just to get them off my back, of course I paid it. It was only $80. But the fact that they came after a portable building, and because it looks like a house, they wanted me to get building permits for them. I thought that was kind of ridiculous. But rather than fight City Hall, a small community, maybe make some enemies, people mad, it was just easier to give them their building permits, which is nothing compared to a building permit for building a house. $80. It's not that was nothing, but it still kind of irritated me in the back of my head. I do have a couple questions for you, though, I wanted to throw out, and that was just for people contemplating this. What was, just to be honest, what was your biggest headache with it? And how about something you thought was going to be a headache but wasn't?
Okay, well, my biggest headache was probably the time it was stolen.
That's obvious. I'm talking about the whole process of getting into a tiny home.
Getting into a tiny home. I'm really having to think about that. Did I have any headaches? I think the biggest challenge was finding a place to park it. And not because there aren't lots of beautiful places to park a tiny home, but because living in a tiny home when you don't own a stationary home, it's this type of relationship that we don't have a lot of cultural context for. You're not quite a roommate. You're not quite a neighbor. You're somewhere in between. The gal I lived with and I coined the term landmate. So it is this relationship. It's community living. You're in each other's spaces, but you're also kind of part. And we are still in the process of creating some cultural context around what that relationship is, what the boundaries are. It takes a lot of communication to have this kind of relationship. And so it's, I'm not going to just put my tiny home in anybody's backyard. I want it to be somebody, again, tiny home living is truly about community. That's the tagline of this whole experience.
Right.
And I was very lucky that the first place that I parked it was a really good fit. And part of the barrier, part of why it was in storage was that finding another good fit during the pandemic was more challenging.
Yeah.
And that's the question that I'm holding now. Jade and I were just talking about this on the way up, about it's not just a question of finding somebody who's saying, like, I have space, you can come put your house on my land. but it's about finding, folks who are open to building this kind of relationship and having more of that sense of community in their lives. I think the biggest thing that surprised me was how totally fine I was, and actually how much better I felt not owning things, a lot of things, which I spoke to a little bit about earlier. But that was a really big surprise. And when I've told that to other people, the number one comment I get when I say that to other people is people say, well, I could never do it. I like my things. And that's where I was, is I thought, I don't know, do I have to get a storage unit to store all my things? Maybe I'll hang on to these things and just, if I don't like it, then I can go back to them. And I've really come to see that as cultural rhetoric that now's the part where I sound like I am totally soapboxing. I think there's a lot of cultural rhetoric and a lot of cultural pressure. Everything we know about marketing, everything we know about consumerism, there is a lot of cultural pressure to keep us buying things. And you don't realize how that gets in your bones, and you think it's you needing these things, and you think, I have to live this way. And actually you don't. And it felt like waking up. It was a type of waking up from that, from realizing that these are just cultural messages that are simply not true to what it's like to live as a person.
There's nothing like wondering where all the money in your bank went, and then you look around your house thinking, man,
there it is.
I have way too much stuff, and you don't use 90% of it.
Yeah.
You have interest in owning your own land for a tiny home. How do you feel about that? Because I hear a lot of people that they buy a piece of property and then they stick a tiny house on it. What do you think about that? Is that an interest that you have, or something you would steer away from?
So my friend Jade and I have talked a lot about putting together a tiny home village. I actually think tiny home villages are becoming more. They're part of what's becoming more and more mainstream.
Right.
And that would really be the dream, to have some land. Of course, right now this is just a dream, because buying land is also it's a lot to say about that. But the dream would be to have a collection of tiny homes of people who want to live this way and to live in community. One of the things we talk about in the mental health world, everyone is so lonely in our country. Everyone is so lonely, and everyone thinks they're the only ones that are lonely. Everyone thinks they're the only ones who struggles to make friends. Everyone thinks they're the only ones who is struggling, if they're not partnered, is struggling to find a partner, or, having a sense of community. And in my mind, this isn't the solution, but it's a solution of finding ways to live in close-knit, tight-knit spaces with other people. So that would really that's the dream.
I know one of our dreams, my wife and I, one of our dreams for many years since we did this has been to have a piece of land.
Yeah.
And start a tiny home community.
We should talk about this.
Right?
Yeah.
We almost did once again in Colorado. It was up in the the high desert part of Colorado. There was a guy had a bunch of land. He was sort of partitioning it off to other people that wanted to go. Turned out it was a cult.
Oh, dang.
So we
haven't talked about whether we wanted to be a cult.
We ended up.
That's a different conversation.
We ended up backing out of that one. We let him keep our $350 down payment.
You're like, this seems like a good price to pay to not be in a cult.
It was strange. There was a professional chef, and the rule was he was the only one allowed to cook. No one else was allowed to cook, not even in your own home.
Oh.
You had to all eat at the central kitchen, and it was all like extra meals were prepared for the visitors that were going to come and join us and bring us away. And it got weird, like really fast.
Really fast.
Yeah, it was a couple days, and we're like, nope.
Yeah, we're gonna take our home and drive away.
We got as far as to kind of pull up and say hi and shake everybody's hand.
This is not the kind of tiny home village I want.
Have a meal over a campfire, and nope, not going to work.
No.
But to have an actual home, and some of these communities are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Some of them are nicer than some residential neighborhoods.
I think that's one of the things that the folks in the tiny home community are trying to teach their cities is that this is a way of having, beautiful homes and safety in home ownership, having a sense of access to home ownership, an entry point into home ownership. This isn't. I'm sort of struggling with how to finish that sentence. This is an unknown for a lot of cities, and Jade and I have a friend who says that cities struggle to have new ideas, and this is a new idea.
Right.
So we need more folks in the tiny home community to be having these conversations at the city level, educating cities about what an amazing option this is for housing. Yeah.
And I think you mentioned
it's a proper zoning for that too.
Yes.
Right. Kind of stuff, because somebody's got a mansion and you want to put a tiny home on the lot next to it, they're going to freak out.
Yeah. Well, and to have a cheaper way to do that would be to have a co-op of people go in and buy a piece of land together. But the laws make it really hard.
Make it really hard to do that
for 10 people to go in and buy 10 acres, 5 acres of land.
Right.
It's almost impossible.
I know.
You have to have the one person do it, and then everybody else. If there were different laws on the books to be able to partition out smaller sections of land, I think it would make things easier.
Yeah, this is Jade's territory more than mine.
And more affordable.
But I see her nodding, so I'm like, yes, that agree.
We are about out of time here for the show. We have to get going, but yes, I do. I do this, the affordability and as we move.
Anything? Sorry.
Oh no. Go ahead.
I wanted to know if there was anything she wished we would have asked her that she wanted to get out before we go, or any information she wants to share.
I think the main thing that I want to continually share is just how full of gratitude I am at the Spokane community, the Spokane Police Department, the tiny home community, everyone on social media who helped me reunite with my home for all the reasons we talked about today. This feels like being reunited with a loved one, and my main takeaway when I look back on this experience, my main takeaway is going to be just how grateful I am to all the people who came together to help me.
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, again, we have to get out of here, but I'm so happy you got it back. I'm so happy you came in today.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been great. And you can tune in right here tonight on KCHW. What do we have tonight, Scott? We have Out of the Woods from 6 to 8 p.m. From 8 to 9 p.m. is Kilt and a Twist. Then Acoustic Cafe from 9 to 11. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning with the morning show. We're going to have Craig McQueen and Paula with us tomorrow morning. I don't believe we have any guests tomorrow, but we're going to be talking about some local music, and the happening is going on there. We got some stuff coming up next month and the next couple months music-wise that we're going to discuss. And we hope you guys all have a great day. Thank you for listening to the KCHW Morning Show.
Thanks for joining us.
Goodbye, everybody. Oh, I got to hit the button. There we go.
Come on, Chuck. You can't just swim, eat grapes, and play around all the time.
You can't tell me what to do. You're not my dad.
Could be.
Dad? Is that you?
Those guys are on fire.
Bye, everybody. Have a great day.